The views and opinions expressed by participants in the following public affairs program do not necessarily reflect the position or beliefs of WDEF or its staff.
Since 1954, this is Point of View, the world record-holding public affairs program produced at the studios of WDEF-TV Chattanooga and with underwriting community support.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Point of View. I'm your co-host, Vincent Ivan Phipps. Today we discuss an event that has local significance because of a lynching that occurred here in Chattanooga that led to historical ramifications at the Supreme Court level. We're going to meet two gentlemen who represent this auspicious event called the Ed Johnson Project. We're going to meet both of the co-chairs of this event, Mr. LaFrederick Thurkill and Mr. Stephen Durthick. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
I can already feel the Chattanooga audience leaning in about Supreme Court, local lynching, Chattanooga. If you would, for those who do not understand, share the significance of what the Ed Johnson Project is and about what happened on that day involving that lynching with Ed Johnson. Well,
the Ed Johnson Project is an event that is aimed at recognizing three things involving the Ed Johnson lynching, if you will. In 1906, a 23-year-old African-American male was lynched from the Walnut Street Bridge, and that case was the first case in the United States Supreme Court history where they intervened into a state ruling and found the sheriff in contempt of court.
Wow.
So
in 1906?
1906.
Okay, got justice back then?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
All right.
And so for the courts in the United States, it changed the way the writ of habeas corpus was involved or used in trials. Right. And also in 1906, there were two African-American attorneys, Styles Hutchins and Noah Pardon, who helped to be counsel for Ed Johnson. And
so the attorney's last name was Pardon. That's appropriate, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so Noah Pardon was the attorney who had the case heard before the United States Supreme Court, and John Marshall Harlan was the United States Supreme Court justice who heard the case and had it heard before the other justices. Right. And so the case is historical in that nature. And so when you think about the fact that in 1906, two African-American attorneys made history being the first case where an African-American attorney was the lead counsel in the case heard before the Supreme Court. And then, so in the Deep South, two African-American attorneys representing an African-American who was lynched here in Chattanooga. Wow, okay. And of course then the story of the Ed Johnson lynching itself. And so the memorial aims at recognizing those three events, the significance of the case with the Supreme Court, the historical history of the African-American attorneys, and the lynching itself. Thank you, LaFrederick. Steve, as one of the co-chairs of this event, what is it that the Ed Johnson Project is doing now, and why should others get involved with this project?
Yes. Well, I would just like to say that having grown up in Chattanooga, gone to Baylor School, I never heard about the story of Ed Johnson, so when I did, it captured my imagination because I want my city to not just celebrate the happy things, but to also recognize some painful parts of our history because that's where healing comes from. Absolutely. And so one of the ways that
history is truth.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. And to get to reconciliation, which is our main goal is reconciliation, you have to go through the truth. And so Linda DeVoyson is a documentarian that has been working for 10 years to produce a documentary telling the Ed Johnson story. And right now she has a 22-minute rough cut of the documentary, which our project team is going around the city having interracial house parties at congregations, at businesses, to view the documentary and to have conversation about what the story meant then and what it means for us today. So that's a main thing, and I think LaFrederick might want to tell you and the audience about an event next Wednesday that we would love people to come to.
I think we also have an image up, if I'm not mistaken, up on the screen about what occurred at the event and also some information as well about the event. If we have a chance to pull that up, we'll take a look at it, if you would. Now, the event, what are we looking at right here?
Right there is where the site is for the proposed monument for the Ed Johnson Project, which is the south end of the Walnut Street Bridge, close to the area where Ed Johnson was lynched. And we're looking at developing that area right there called the Ramble, and hopefully soon.
I see many people give that dog the high five. They have no idea about this historical significance, 10 feet away from that very spot.
Right, right. And so, but of course, our goal is to have the memorial place there.
Right.
And again, as Steve talked about going around doing the community events, it's also an opportunity for the community to get involved and help contribute to the cost of the project, which involves creating the monument, also helping to complete the documentary, as well as to continue a scholarship for Ed Johnson Memorial Fund that I started in 2006.
Right.
I wrote the play called Dead Innocent, the Ed Johnson story. And as a result of that, we took the money from that and gave it to the Community Foundation to start a scholarship fund in memory of Ed Johnson. And of course, you know, I began this work back in 1999 with helping to clean up the cemetery and bringing attention to the Ed Johnson story.
Gotcha.
And so this is just the next step in making sure that we preserve and remember the life of Ed Johnson. But on July the 19th at 11:30 at the Edney downtown Market on 11th Street, there's going to be a luncheon, and it's open to the public, and we'd invite you to come, and you'll be able to see.
For those that want to support and come to that event, how if they contact you to get more information, Frederick?
Well, they can go to the Ed Johnson page on Facebook and find out and register there.
So go to Facebook at the Ed Johnson Project.
Right.
Okay.
And then there's
people clicking right now. I can feel it already.
Right.
Good.
Go click right now.
Wonderful.
There's also a site called the edjohnsonproject.org, right, Steve?
I believe it's the edjohnsonproject.com.
Okay. And that's why we're co-chairs.
It worked out. It worked out.
Yeah.
You know, Ed Johnson had 2 attorneys.
That's
so
right.
It's okay. So it takes a team. It takes a team.
That's right.
Now we have about 2 minutes left, and if I'm not mistaken, there was just a editorial that was published that said that after 100 years, they've just found out, they've released the records that Ed Johnson was innocent. Is that correct?
Well, in 2000, there were a group of people from Chattanooga, including some attorneys and some preachers. Reverend Paul McDaniel was involved, who represent the Ed Johnson family. And they went back before the Hamilton County courts to have his name cleared at the Hamilton County courts.
What a relief for the family, just to have that justice, even after that long, but just to have that justice cemented in history.
Yes, and so that happened.
We have about a minute left, and one of the things I wanted to address is that when he died, he gave his last final words, which was, "God bless you all, I am an innocent man."
Right.
And I've seen you all with the t-shirts that have that. If you would share with our Chattanooga audience in about the last 30 seconds that we have left, why someone needs to support what you're doing with the Ed Johnson Project.
I believe that this is such a central story to my hometown and to Chattanooga because it's a story that's still relevant today. Back then, there was an innocent man, Ed Johnson, who was killed. We still have that today, unfortunately.
Yes.
There were 2 heroic, courageous African-American attorneys that stood up in spite of death threats for Ed Johnson. We still have attorneys and other advocates for justice. We need to keep that story alive. And finally, the precedent of the U.S. Supreme Court is relevant today as much as ever to show the federal government oversight over civil rights in communities like Chattanooga.
Excellent. Thank you both for joining us. Steve Durthick and Frederick Thurkill, co-chairman of the Ed Johnson Project. And thank you all for joining us as well. On our next segment of Point of View, we're going to look at civil rights and disabilities and what's new in Chattanooga. You'll find out on the next Point of View.
We need a claim number?
When I started taking care of Mom, I didn't realize the challenge of playing so many roles. But above all, I'm still her daughter.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving. We're here to help.
Carolyn Rayburn and Jennifer Crutchfield. I'm Maurice Lewis, but they're here for a specific reason. We want to talk about disabilities or civil rights. What's the answer to the question? I'll start with you, Carolyn.
The answer to the question is, it's one and the same. The Americans with Disabilities Rights protected us just like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 protected people of color and race and culture.
Well, it went even farther because it talked about the rights for women too.
Yes.
Well, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 set the stage, but after that happened, people with disabilities still didn't have the same rights. So the ADA 1990 was passed July 26th, and that's a day that we celebrate. And at the Mayor's Council on Disability and in Chattanooga, we celebrate it at Miller Plaza.
Oh, okay, so we have rights, and more rights. Now we have a Mayor's Council on Disability. What in God's name do you do there?
Well, we meet monthly.
Okay, so government meetings, we got that, okay? Now beyond that.
We are an advisory council. So we bring people in, and people talk to us about the things going on in Chattanooga and the opportunities for people with disabilities, people with all abilities. And one of the things that we're very proud of is an annual celebration that we hold celebrating the ADA. But we also host workshops and expos throughout the year so that people learn about all the resources available here.
You have something coming up very near here that's special. What is that?
That's the ADA Celebration and Carnival. It's at Miller Plaza on July the 26th from 11 until 1. And there's going to be booths set up from different agencies in town to let folks know what's available. It's a fun day. We're there to celebrate and have a good time, but also to open people's eyes. Maybe folks that are just passing by and you know, don't know what this is all about, and they can come in and find out. And then folks that do have disabilities can come, you know, and see what is available for them. You know, we're going to have art. We're doing art, tactile art, and art with folks that have disabilities, art that's been done by folks with disabilities.
Disabilities come in many different forms.
Yes.
You were not always in that chair. What happened that put you there, and how did your friends and people begin to look at you after you were not walking anymore, but wheel-bound?
In November of 2002, my husband and I were hit from behind by a loaded log truck, and it changed our lives instantly. He was killed, and I was paralyzed from the waist down. And so my friends, I have a wonderful group of friends, but a lot of them just didn't know how, you know, number one, they're like, oh my gosh, she lost her husband and now her legs and she's not the same person. And actually, I was a member of Hamilton County STAR, Special Tactics and Rescue Services, and I'll never forget that one of the guys was talking to my son, and he said, I want to go in and see your mom, but I don't know what to say to her. I don't know how to talk to her anymore. And my son said, you talk to her just like you did before her accident. She's the same person.
When we look at disabilities, there are the disabilities that we can see, but there are many hidden disabilities. I mean, I have a disability. I have asthma and COPD.
One in 5 Americans has a disability.
It's not obvious.
Right. There are all kinds of disabilities. 1 in 5 Americans have a disability. And statistically, things change as you age, and the propensity for disability increases. And so that's why it's important to know, to have information and know about the resources available in your community. So when you were, when you had your accident, what kinds of the services that enabled you to live independently are those kinds of services that we celebrate at the Mayor's Council and with the information that we provide in Chattanooga.
The important thing that we need to talk about here a little bit is, we mentioned disabilities and civil rights. Disabilities and civil rights. What do you do if you feel like you're not being treated fairly because of a visible disability? Could be race, could be being in a wheelchair. What agencies are there out there to protect?
Well, it depends. It depends on in which way you are experiencing.
Okay, race, for instance.
Well, in disability, if you are trying to go into a building and you can't get into the building, then that is the public accommodations part of ADA. You can call 1-800-4ADA.
Okay, now we go to housing.
1-800-432-4ADA.
Okay, what about housing?
In Chattanooga, you can call the Office of Multicultural Affairs, and there is the Fair Housing trainer Tony Morgan, who takes any housing complaints.
If, in the interest of full disclosure, I am a member of that advisory board, so I do know that there are often testers who go out to see what is the situation like here. Is it the same for everyone? And it's not singling out a particular realtor or a particular employer. They need to have a broad cross-section of information. Now, when you guys get that kind of information for your advisory group, what do you do with it?
Well, it depends on who it's, what area it's targeting, who we share it with. So we get, for example, a lot of people who talk with us about problems and inequity in education. Well, we're a city advisory council, so city doesn't do education, but that doesn't mean we can ignore what we're hearing. So we go to our peers in the county system and in the education system and share with them the information that we've gotten.
You know, when I started this segment out, I was realizing that I'm really running out of air, and it's not like you're not known to talk, Jennifer.
I think he's teasing me.
Now, you've got this big event that's coming up here, and you're looking forward to it. What do you hope to get out of it?
We hope for everyone that has a disability, and for even for, you know, for family members of folks to come out and celebrate with us and have a good time, just enjoy themselves and see what's available in our city. And if you do have an issue, you know, maybe you can find someone there at the conference that will help you. You know,
we have cotton candy. And we have ice.
Pop cream and popcorn snow cones.
At Miller Plaza. So it's a neat day. It's a fun celebration. We've done this for years, and we celebrate the anniversary of this law that's very important to us.
What kind of support do you get from the community at large? Who else is participating in this event?
CARTA is a sponsor, and so everybody will...
CARTA is the... transportation?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was trying to find the acronyms. Chattanooga Area Regional Transportation Authority. See, right. I can get it. CARTA is a sponsor, and also Carrabba's and the Big Chill are sponsors. So all of our guests have lunch and get to have cotton candy and ice snow cones. The snow cones are very popular.
You know, there are some very famous people who have visible disabilities, but there are so many in the entertainment world that have disabilities we overlooked. Danny Glover has a speech impediment. Would you believe? One of the most beautiful actresses and women in the world, Halle Berry. Is it Halle Berry or Halle Berry?
Halle Berry.
Okay, anyway, she's hard of hearing. I mean, you would never know from her diction and her ability to form words. So there are any number of people that we can look at. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, for instance. Who else would you think about that's famous that we overlook their disabilities because of their ability?
Oh, that's a great question. FDR is really kind of always my go-to guy. But when I started working in disability back in 1990, I got to know Evan Kemp and Justin Dart, who were the first political appointees on federal levels to have disabilities. Yes. And they were the guys who worked with Senator Tom Harkin to get this law passed. And I'll tell you, it was fascinating. I watched people in wheelchairs chain themselves together because this law was so important.
You know, many centuries ago, people with disabilities were killed for any number of reasons: superstition, religion, and a hand that was not productive was a burden.
Yes.
We've come a long way.
Yes.
We have.
And we still have a ways to go, but we're working on it every day.
What changed your opinion about disabilities? Was it your accident?
I'm not sure that, you know, I think I said before that, you know, I thought that I had an empathy for folks with disabilities or, you know, different abilities. And yes, of course, my accident did change my point of view. And I see every day how hard it is, especially for some folks. I think that I'm very fortunate. I'm paralyzed from the waist down, but I'm able to take care of myself. I have things that make me feel valued and have a self-worth. And I think that everybody with a disability wants that. I don't think that folks want a handout. I think they want a hand up. I think they want folks to show them what is available that they can take advantage of to get an education or to get fair housing.
That's a good point. Now, are there any educational programs that you are recommending through the Mayor's Office for Disabilities?
We work with a lot of the nonprofits who serve people with disabilities in Chattanooga, and so we do a lot with the Chattanooga Autism Center, and I'm really proud of what they do. But gosh, Signal Centers, they do amazing things. Yes. At WTCI, we did a show, a Greater Chattanooga show, about this guy who works there in assistive technology, building 3D devices that are assistive technology for people with physical disabilities, and he does incredible stuff. And he has a child who doesn't have feet or arms, and he built all of these neat 3D things for him. So we have a lot of cool agencies here.
It is a fascinating subject matter. It affects all of us, the seen and the unseen disabilities that are really time for ability once we understand what we're dealing with and how to treat people with their manifestations. We want to thank you very much for being a guest here today.
Thank you.
And Jennifer, I want to ask you to stick around because I know there are a lot of interesting things that are happening at public broadcasting, and we want to find out what's going on besides Big Bird.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes, and you can do it here. So what are you waiting for? Just go to the site.
Hello, I'm Leslie Smith, guest host of Point of View, and we have with us today, Nayara Cancel, and she's the senior producer of Point of View. And we also have with us today Jennifer Crutchfield, and she's the director of public relations at Channel 45.
WGCI.
So welcome, and thank you for being with us today. Just tell us some things about 45. What's going on over at Channel 45?
Well, thank you for having me. We are always doing something new at WGCI. We are Tennessee Valley's community PBS station. We serve 1.4 million people with local and national programming, and we have a very exciting announcement that we've just made. Ron Haar, who was the president of the Chamber of Commerce for Chattanooga and also a CEO at Blue Care, is joining us as host of Explore Health, an all-new health series that will be launching on October 5th.
Great.
So, yeah, we're very excited about it. Okay. We'll be exploring topics like asthma, allergies, Alzheimer's, diabetes, stroke care, becoming a parent.
You say that a PBS hosts all these people and services all these people, but who are your targeted generations? Is it just young and educated professionals?
Oh, wow. Well, when I was growing up, it was like the Lawrence Welk bubbles, and PBS was older people who watched. But today, it's everybody. We really do have programming for everybody. From children, we're one of the leading educational resources for kids on air and online. And things like Downton Abbey, I don't think I know anybody who didn't watch Downton Abbey. So from Downton Abbey and those historical dramas to PBS NewsHour and that quality, trusted reporting to science and nature.
What's the goal of PBS?
To educate, inspire, and engage people in a lifetime of learning and exploration.
I have a son. He watches PBS programming.
All right.
We're wondering, are there any fears or concerns about budget cuts?
Absolutely. We worry all the time. We and stations like us, I mean, I say 1.4 million people, but we're a small station. We get over 50% of our annual operating budget from members like you. People who are sustaining members give $7 a month. That $7 helps us buy Sesame Street and Downton Abbey and all of those things that support our community.
What are new programming that we can see besides the ones that you have mentioned?
Oh gosh, we have a bunch of new fall stuff coming out that is going to be so exciting.
For example?
Well, we have Sherlock will be coming out this year with a new one. We have the Durrells in Corfu. We have lots of great kid programming, and we have a new film series of screenings that we're going to do here in Chattanooga at the Palace Picture House. Second Tuesday of every month, beginning September 14th, we'll be having a free screening. The first one it's top secret, but I think I can tell you. We're watching Poldark. Oh, very. Yeah, Poldark is this exciting Revolutionary War kind of historical drama, and the guy is really handsome and he takes his shirt off. It's just hard not to like anything about this show.
What do you say to people that say either PBS is too old for me, it's too young for me, I'm not interested? What do you say to those people to make them, you know, change their mind?
Oh gosh, I don't really have to say anything because the programming says it for me. And today people can watch in such easier ways. If you have a Roku or an Apple TV, you can watch at home online on your television. You can watch on your laptop when you're at your office if nobody hears you. You can watch and participate in PBS in a lot of different ways now. So there is something for everybody.
Okay, so as far as community education, what role do you all play in the schools? Are you all in the schools?
There are 850,000 teachers across the country who use PBS resources in their classroom. Whether it's a program that you watch online or on air in your classroom, or whether it's some of the interactive games and digital learning elements at PBS Learning Media, teachers really love the classroom assets. For example, not just teachers in Chattanooga, teachers all over our region use a program that we produced called the Howard Class of 1960 to study civil rights, because it was an episode of the History Maker series that we produced about the Howard Class of 1960 and those legendary lunch counter sit-ins. Exactly.
We're almost out of time, but I know that you have something coming up that's pretty special to you.
Oh, we do. PBS at the Palace is really going to be neat. The Palace Picture House is in the Tomorrow building, which many of us old people remember is yesterday's. And so we have partnered with the Palace Picture House and we'll be hosting these free screenings. People can visit our Facebook page or visit us online on WGCI TV.org and register for a free screening.
Well, Jennifer, we want to thank you so much for coming out and joining us today, and Naira, thank you also for being here with us.
Great.
Thank you for joining us, and please be sure to tune in to the next edition of Point of View.
Closed captioning provided by the following.
Funding for this program is brought to you by Barnett & Company, specializing in tax-efficient strategies for the preservation and distribution of family wealth, offering continuous investment management with a focus on long-term strategies. Areas of service include investment, estate, education, and retirement planning. Barnett & Company, the power of compound returns over time. More information can be found on the web at barnettandcompany.com.